Hi, everybody. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Welcome to the Plant-Based Business Hour. So happy to have you with me here today. You know, the public markets have been going up and going down and going up and going down. It's a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Who can take it? Maybe we should do a deeper dive into this today on what is actually driving plant-based stocks up and then down. And if we think they're going to turn right back around and go up again, this is why I want to bring on my guest today. We're going to get right into it. The CEO and chairman of Boosh Food, Jim Pakulis. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
So your background hasn't always been in plant-based. You've been in a bunch of other sectors. I think I'll call you a serial entrepreneur. Right now you're CEO, but your specialty really taking those businesses, sometimes even from zero, and scaling them to way into the millions. I'm wondering what made you decide to focus on plant-based?
Great question. My team and I have looked at probably 7 or 8 different industries back in 2018, 2019, and we wanted to concentrate on an industry that we believe had significant long-term growth. Once we established that industry, then we went and looked at 30 to 40 different companies within the plant-based sector and came across Boosh, and they met our metrics. So it was a funneling process in order to get into the sector and then move Boosh forward.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So I just finished an interview this morning. For those of you who know, you follow my podcast, I've launched VegTech Invest, and I have several products on the public market. One of them, an index product that just launched recently. So I was talking to FinTech TV, and they were saying, you know, oh, is this just a fad? And I was like, okay, not only is it not just a fad, it's not even a mega trend. It's a mega trend. So I know why I believe this is true. Why do you believe in, I'll say, extreme long-term growth?
You have several generations that are causing this disruptiveness, the millennials, the Gen X, the Gen moving the needle on this. And there's 3 primary reasons. One, they care very much what goes into their bodies, far more than my generation. I'm in my late 50s, so far more than us. And we grew up with the fast food type of mentality. Hurry up and quick grab a burger at the fast food chain. Conversely, the generations that are growing now care about what goes into their body. They certainly care about our animal kingdom. And last but certainly not least, they care about the limited resources we have on planet Earth. And when you combined the populace, that large body, and the reasons why they're doing what they're doing, there's no way this is a fad. I'll take it one step further. We deal obviously with a lot of grocery stores. Grocery stores now are expanding their frozen section. And the reason is most plant-based foods go into the frozen section due to the limited amount of preservatives that they have in them. So you have these large chains that are putting tens of millions of dollars into the expansion of tenant improvements within their grocery stores. They would not be doing this for a fad. They're doing this for the long term. And I'll say one more thing. You do have the fast food chains now that are getting into the plant-based sector, which is fantastic. You can go to Starbucks, Burger King, Taco Bell, and you can have a plant-based meal with your French fries and your soda. So more geared towards the flexitarians, not just the vegans, but the folks like myself that do like to have some fish or some chicken, but want to eat better. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Elizabeth. It is not a fad.
Yeah, no, it's a big fat mega trend. I will take what you have said, and I will raise you, if you will, in our Planetary Health game of poker. And Nova Market Insight just came out with a study that has been backed or agreed upon by the Good Food Institute, saying that planetary health has just surpassed personal health as to why people are shifting their diets. And this is very important as you see Gen Z and millennials really driving this growth, who say, hey, the way you guys are running the planet doesn't work for me anymore. So that's really strong when you see people putting their dollars behind their values and the change they want to see in the world. Is it enough? I'll say no. I'll say what takes us over the edge and pushes us to a very major mega trend is that industry also got the memo. So you look at Hormel, JBS, Tyson, Smithfield, Dannon, Nestle. These folks are all investing heavily into plant-based options because ultimately they see the inefficiency of our current food supply system, not to mention the cruelty and the health implications, health and healthcare cost implications. But they see the inefficiency of, we have a growing population, 7.7 billion to 9.8 billion people on the planet, according to the United Nations, but we're not getting more land and we're not getting more water. So you look at plant-based foods, something like Beyond Meat, life cycle analysis from the University of Michigan, using 93% less water, 99% less water, 93% less land, 90% less greenhouse gas emissions, 46% less energy. Went on a little bit of a tirade there, but just to say, it's these two things together, consumers and industry, that is pushing us over the edge.
Oh boy, touche. I think you won that hand. You won that hand of
Did
poker.
Well, good for me. I hope you're into betting for another round, because you brought up something that I think is very fascinating. You say, okay, well, hey, plant-based foods now really going heavily into the frozen section, and grocery stores making room for them. Now, the last time I went to my grocery store, I usually don't shop in the frozen section, but okay, for this argument, I'll say, when last time I was in the frozen section, I saw Tyson, JBS, Nestle with Sweet Earth. So yes, there were plant-based options, but they were all the big meat players. I'm wondering how you're finding it getting your brand Boosh into the frozen section.
So in 2021, we were in roughly 100 stores in Canada. And then by the end of 2021, we were in over 600 stores in Canada. So we had a very, very nice increase in the number of stores willing to take us on. We have to tie that in, as in any business, you need a proper infrastructure. Connie Marples, the founder of Boosh, has done a wonderful job putting together the infrastructure in Greater Vancouver. So to answer your question, we've been very, very well received. The products, we try to have the least amount of preservatives, taste great, and those are the key elements that are pushing, as you and I just agreed on, this huge, they all have to agree on it. You can't have price points that are too high. You can't have a ton of preservatives, or else, and you have to have accessibility to those products. And to go ahead and demonstrate that we can do that in the United States. We're expanding now into Canada. We're expanding now into the United States, which is where I am. And then in conjunction, we just acquired Beanfields, which is a bean chip, and they're in over 7,000 stores throughout North America. So we have we went from 600 stores in January to today, we're in 7,600 stores. We have a really nice footprint, and all of our products are being well received within those stores that we're selling into.
Mm-hmm. So again, you give me another great segue. I'm here on your website. Of course, a lot of people are going to listen to this through podcasts, but for right now, live on LinkedIn, I'm here on your website and I'm seeing amazing cross category. So maybe you can share with me why, on the one hand, you're doing heat and eat chili, and then on the other hand, you're making, oh my gosh, pâtés and dips. Hold on, folks. It's Salt Spring Harvest is the name of that. But you've also got Pulse Kitchen vegan cheese, creamy almond chèvre, dill Havarti, kind of blue. What has made you want to go cross category like this?
Let's go to the beginning of our story. Connie Marples, she is very successful. She was on the short list of Condé Nast's best restaurant in the world award back in early 2000s. Connie has celiac, and consequently, she's very sensitive in regards to what she can eat. 217, 218, a lot of her friends are saying, hey, would you give us recipes, more plant-based, healthy types of recipes? Connie took it to the next level. She said, hey, why don't I go ahead and create these recipes, packer, start manufacturing this and seeing if the local stores would receive it. So she jumped into her Boosh mobile and started personally going to the various stores. So this was all based on her sensitivity to specific foods and being focused on non-GMO, plant-based, gluten-free foods that she could easily digest. So that was the origin of the 6 frozen meals. From there, and this is now we're into 2021, we have the 6 frozen meals, and we're always looking at items that would complement the plate on a plant-based dish. I don't believe we're ever going to have a plant-based chicken nugget or a plant-based burger, but we like to have that item that complements that main. So we came up with the three chill lines, so Sloppy Joe and gravy and chili, and I believe that those complement very, very well. We were also introduced through acquisitions of the two companies you just mentioned, Salt Springs and Pulse, and decided to go ahead and acquire those as boutique, unique companies that within our portfolio of companies. And again, we have a very high metrics in regards to what we look at that we want to bring into the family. We have to make sure there's synergy with management. We have to make sure they have solid infrastructure. And just as importantly, we have to believe that there's scalability with these companies that we're bringing in. And so those two companies, we believe, fit really, really well with us. And then taking it to the next level, Beanfields, which is a significantly larger company that we just acquired. And we believe that that is a wonderful catalyst for us to take the Boosh products and then use the relationships we have with Beanfields in the large change throughout the United States and attempt to go ahead and introduce Boosh through those relationships that we now have because of Beanfields.
I'll have to say, I didn't even realize that Beanfields was on the market, or when I read that press release that you had acquired them, I was sort of taken aback. I think of them as a very successful brand, although you've made quite a few changes to that company already in your serial entrepreneur-ness that you are so well known for, I'll say. But before I do that, I just want to tell everybody again, those on podcasts, I'll just describe it for you. I'm looking at that which you offer, and I've got rustic veggie pot pie entree. I've got, hey folks, shepherd pie. So we all know how disgusting real shepherd pie is, but this is going to be super delish because it's got Beyond Meat in it, and you're just not going to have to deal with what else could be in shepherd's pie. But really interesting sort of heat and go dishes, pastas and bowls and mac and cheese, as I was saying before, sloppy joes, good gravy. Some of these are in packets and some of these are in boxes, but very easy, ready to go, kind of at home, very simple. And then this line of pâtés, this line of cheese, and now Beanfields, which is so amazing. So that distribution with Beanfields is probably giving you very much a leg up.
Yes.
Okay, so what are some of the changes that you've done to Beanfields?
The primary one, and we Elizabeth, we haven't done, one thing I don't like to do when you do an acquisition is make a lot of changes, and I think a lot of people do that erroneously. If you're going to buy a company, you're buying it because of the success it already has. However, some refinements that SKU rational. So as you know, you only have so much real estate in the grocery store, whether it's the frozen or the refrigerated or the shelf stable. In our particular case, we're in the snack section. We and Whole Foods, which we saw a lot too, gives us certain amount. Had a lot of SKUs. We had 19 SKUs, and some of those were seeming to be a little too repetitive. And the fact that we only have a limited space, so we're somewhat cannibalizing our own real focus.
You know what? Let me stop you. Let me stop you for just a second because you're cutting out so much.
Damn.
Is there any
And you
way
are
we
too.
can? Really? Gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we can try taking off your headset? I wonder if that might help us a little bit. We'll see if that does anything, folks. Sometimes it was the audio skip that was skipping more than the video, but now I can't hear you at all. So I think you have to plug them back in.
Hello,
we shall be. Oh, there you are. Let's see if that gives us a little bit of better continuity.
Okay.
Okay.
It just froze up. Your screen just froze up, and it very well could be at my end. The internet companies are up and down the roads fixing up.
Oh gosh, well, unlucky us. Okay, if you don't mind, that was a fun little exercise that we will edit out later. But if you could put your headphones back on, because I'm getting so much echo. I am not the tech guru, folks, but we do what we can here, and we roll with it because we're live, and that's kind of the fun of being live. Okay, so but before I stopped you, because I was getting 95% of everything you're saying. So this cross category that you have, you decided not really to go in and change much about Beanfields, but you have streamlined it a little bit.
That's it. That's the bottom line. SKU rationalization. We have to bring it down from 19 SKUs and then dominate with those, and then slowly if we're going to go ahead and reach out and introduce more SKUs, we do it on a slow basis and making sure that we have continuity and acceptance by the community to open up that up. Last year also, we introduced onion rings, which are phenomenal onion rings. In fact, within the first year, the numbers were north of $1 million within 6 months of revenue from the onion rings. And these are unaudited. We're going through the audit process right now. So we are really jazzed about not only the Beanfield chips, which we're bringing down from 19 to between 6 to 8 right now, but then the 2 different onion ring flavors that we have. They're just up against any onion ring in the marketplace today, and we would win.
And is it Beanfields that produces the onion rings, or under what brand is it?
Correct. Beanfields.
It's Beanfields. Yeah. Yeah. That's so awesome. Well, you talk about, are you self-cannibalizing a little bit? I actually see it from the other perspective. You talk about the grocery store, and the grocery store is giving more real estate to plant-based options. I see the grocery store manager, and they don't want this brand that just does crumbles and this brand that does chicken. They're going to want someone who make my life easy. Give me chicken, a plant-based shrimp, and burgers and sausage and some cheese, and I'll just do a whole display. You're one brand, in and out, one-stop shopping. I don't have time to reinvent the world, people. So I would think that this would be very appealing to the grocery store.
Yes and no, candidly speaking. Yes, there are some stores that love that. Regional stores, smaller regional stores in which there's only 1 or perhaps 2 managers of that store. You're spot on, Elizabeth. The larger stores have 4 or 5 different managers in each different section. However, to counter that, who really loves it are our distributors, because they're the ones that now can go in with that list of products and say, we can dominate 3/4 of your grocery store, frozen, refrigerated, shelf stable. And then also the snacks. We don't have any fresh produce. That's the 4th one we don't have. But we can certainly go in there and have the consumers buy everything in those 3 other categories with the brands that we now have: plant-based, non-GMO, gluten-free, heat and eat products for the family.
Yeah, and you're really hitting 2 major things: that heat and eat. So convenience, people, even Beyond Meat, they sort of have to make it themselves. So here they don't have to. You just take it out of the package and you heat it up and you have your shepherd's pie, which is so convenient. And then snacks is a category that is growing off the charts. I think I saw Spins data for the end of 2021 that would have been growth in the plant-based snack category in the 70 percentile range. So
amazing.
You're really in the right place at the right time, which makes me segue to, and I forget where I saw it, but I did see you say that you think we are on the cusp of a $1 trillion shift. Tell me why you think plant-based foods will be $1 trillion. We talked about it a little bit, but we didn't talk about the trillions. What makes you say in the trillions, not the billions? To give a frame of reference, everybody, because these are huge numbers, the former co-CEO of Whole Foods, Walter Robb, was on the show, and he predicted $500 billion sector. Tell me how you get to $1 trillion.
Bloomberg, there was an article that I recall reading that by 2050, so let's put it in perspective. We're not talking about next year. We're talking about, 30 plus years, 35 years from now, whatever the math is, 18 years from now, in regards to north of $1 trillion valuation of the plant-based industry. Okay. So it isn't necessarily the cash flow or the revenues, but it was the valuation in the article referencing over $1 trillion valuation of the plant-based sector. Listen, it's disruptive. We all know it's disruptive. It is growing. Both of us agree 100%. It's not going to start slowing down. We're going to see this reaching into all different parts of our world, the plant-based industry. And I think it's just going to get better and better. From 2000 to 2010, I was a vegetarian. And there was 4 options. And that was about it, unless you wanted a fresh salad. I was going to the grocery store to buy something, and they were challenging items, to say the least, and they were not that tasty. Fast forward to today, the foods are so tasty. As you've mentioned, the shepherd's pie with Beyond Meat. We also have vegan bolognese with Beyond Meat. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I would rather have that from taste. Forget about the whole meat concept, just from a taste standpoint. I put our shepherd's pie up against a regular shepherd's pie with meat because it's so darn good. So it's disruptive. It's going to get much larger than it is. And I believe Boosh is in a perfect position to try and capitalize on that long-term growth of the industry.
And you mentioned taste, and I'll also mention health. So think about the health implications of a shepherd's pie. My
Right.
word, I think isn't
That's
there
right.
like intestines in shepherd's pie? Something off that nobody really wants, unless maybe you're in Scotland. I don't know. Okay, so we agree. We're talking about incredible growth. We're talking about the grocery store, hacking away at other sectors to make room for our sector. I see from the Good Food Institute that the investment dollars that have gone into this space, so from 2010 to 2019, there was about 3 billion. That's in 10 years. In 2020, no, I'm sorry. From 2020, from in 2020 there was 3.1. In 2021 there was, I want to say, 3.5, and now no, and 2021 was 4.9.
Wow.
All of this is to
Significant
say,
growth.
yes, in 2020, you had more growth than the previous 10 years. You had more investment spending than the previous 10 years. And now we've gone from 3.1 in 2020 to 4.9 billion in 2021. So we see that dollars are flowing into infrastructure, building out co-manufacturing plants. Really, more and more venture capitalists, larger scale investors are coming in. Corporate venture capitalists are coming in. We see all this going to build out the space. Why does the stock market not reflect this?
The ebbs and flows of any industry. Name me one industry that doesn't go through ups and downs, whether it's the gold, the mining, the cannabis, the financial, any industry goes through its ups and downs. Now, I was one of the first ones in the cannabis space in 2010. So I experienced a lot of ups and downs. And this was a publicly traded company before anybody else experienced it. And so I mean, forget ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, in that sector. It's really gone way up and way down. And now it's starting to come back again. It's going to come back very strong. And comparably, Elizabeth, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, have been put into the cannabis sector. And they probably took a 70% on average haircut over the last 24 to 48 months in that sector. But again, we're starting to see that come back. I think it's just underappreciated. I don't see any fundamental challenges in this sector that we are in, the plant-based sector. I just think we have a variety of different headwinds, including the war going on and people being concerned in regards to where their dollars are going to go. Listen, we're emerging plant-based company. It's exciting. It's a tremendously exciting, but there's an inherent risk when you go into the smaller cap companies. There's the potential much larger upside as well. Otherwise, you'd be in the bond market. So when you put all these variables together, folks are a little bit less inherent to want to be risky right now. The war itself, and then just somewhat of a pullback from the plant-based sector prior to us going public in May 2021. However, my prognostication is over the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to start seeing, again, an appreciation of the plant-based sector.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'll say that inflation has folks worried, so they're moving from growth to maybe more value, but that is underscored by a lack of understanding in the sector. So I think there's that general fear going on, not even to mention the war, which of course is, quadrupling everyone's panic, if you will, for lack of a better expression. But I think the inflation has a lot to do with it, although inflation is affecting meat prices as much as it's impacting anything else. Plant-based foods already being slightly more expensive than your average staples, but that's changing for meat. That's becoming much more expensive with inflation. So.
And one thing to add to that, I was just with a good friend of mine who explained to me, she's a former CEO of a prominent company, and she explained to me that she's interviewing for a CEO position. Excuse me, she's interviewing an individual to be a CEO. This individual came in and working for a company doing 700 to 800 million annually, US 700 to 800 million annually. They get their products from overseas, verge of potentially having to restructure the whole company because of the disruptiveness in the challenges of getting their products from overseas. Conversely, Beanfields, Boosh, all their products made in Canada. So we have minimal disruption as far as products.
Yeah, you were cutting out there a little bit, but I'll just help everybody out and say that some people are impacted by food supply chains more than others, and Boosh luckily makes, and Beanfields as well, making everything in Canada, if I got that right. So you're less susceptible to supply chain issues, but obviously we saw those through COVID and beyond. So supply chain issues, in addition to inflation, in addition to the war, has everyone a little panicked and stressful on emerging businesses and emerging sectors. I do, and I know I just said this, but I'll just kind of underscore it. I think there can't be enough said about the lack of education. So it's one of the things that I do at VegTech Invest is really take those meetings on Wall Street and speak at the Wall Street summits and really try to help people understand the inefficiency of our current food supply system and how this is an integral part of feeding the world, is shifting how we make our food, taking it away from animal-based products. So a lot of people have never heard the connection before between our environment and our food supply system. They're focused on alternative energy, but they haven't heard our message. So I think there's a lot of education to be done that can warm people up to it, if you will. Okay, so speaking of things all warm and fuzzy, I speak to a lot of CEOs, I speak to a lot of thought leaders, speak to a lot of people about money and business and the stock market. They don't always also have an animal sanctuary. Could you share with us your sanctuary history and what you do there?
Yeah. I'm happy to. Just for clarification purposes, Beanfields is all made in the United States and Boosh in Canada.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
10 years ago, had created an animal sanctuary. It's actually called Heart Homeless Animal Rescue Team. And the purpose was primarily to save dogs from being euthanized. And so we were able to dogs from being euthanized. And a lot of that had to do with a great team. Everyone was a volunteer, bringing animals actually either into our homes, into other homes, fostering those animals, and then sending them to a non-euthanization organization. Helen Woodward is one of the main ones near San Diego that would do the various temperament tests and then adopt those dogs and then go ahead and get them to home. So it's great. It was great. I'm not involved in it anymore. I'm very proud to have initiated it, organized it, up and going. But again, getting back to the animal kingdom, you just love them. You just love the animals.
100%. 100%. So we talk about food security. We talk about inefficiency. We talk about feeding more people. We talk about our health. We talk about healthcare costs. We talk about pandemic risk. And we talk about animal welfare. So it's one big silver bullet, folks. Never, what else can you say that about, where you can eradicate so many issues with one big system shift? So this is why we say mega trend. Okay, we've talked a lot about your predictions, but maybe I'll take this, because I always ask this as an exit question, but I'll take this question now on the flip side. We've talked about, going to the trillions and where we see the incredible growth, at least by 2040, if not 2035, and certainly by 2050. So definitely in our lifetimes. But there are some interesting and particular dynamics to the plant-based industry. I wonder if you could share your thoughts on that.
Well, I'd like to hit on the capitalization of the companies that are in the plant-based sector as an example. Any investor has to do their due diligence when they get involved in publicly traded companies. Do your research, make the phone calls, talk to your broker, get an understanding of what you're investing in. And again, as we talked about earlier, I specialize in emerging small cap companies, which inherently has a slightly greater risk to it. So with all of that said, what we like to do is try as hard as we can to protect our investors, to protect our shareholders, protect our employees from being non-dilutive. What does that mean? It means trying not to have too many shares out in the marketplace. A lot of our competitors, small companies that are growing like ours, that do go public, may have 50, 100, 150 million shares outstanding. Conversely, we're at the other end of the spectrum. We believe the fewer number of shares outstanding is better for everybody if your fundamentals are there and you can grow your company. So when we went public in May of 21, we only had about 17 million shares outstanding, of which 30% insiders who still work for the company every day. That's another good check mark you want to have when you're doing your research. Are the founders still working for the company? How much ownership do they have? So in tying that in, the underwriting firm that took us public, Haywood Securities up in Canada, we did a relatively small IPO because we did not want to dilute the company that much. So we did a 50-cent IPO, but we had over 1,100 shareholders involved in a less than $3 million IPO. We believe in a huge shareholder base. So trying to be as non-dilutive as possible having a large growing shareholder base with the fundamentals and scalability of the company is a wonderful platform for us in our belief. And that's how we're going to be growing Boosh Plant-based Brands.
Yeah, I think that's very fascinating. When you talk about interesting dynamics, you talk about valuations and what you decide to let go to the public market. I think that there was a big bubble, if you will, in the public markets that is now overly popped. It's gone the other direction. And I think there's now a big bubble in venture capital. You look at into our sector, you look at some of the valuations, and I think, that's going to be tricky as there's a shakeout of some of the companies. So basically, we're just talking about the normal growth pains that you would see in any industry are impacting our industry as well. As we sort of close out, I have a couple of sort of personal questions for you on the way out, if you will. So I'm wondering what you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now.
Patience, patience.
That's a nice one. What would you like your legacy to be?
Integrity. Win, lose, or draw. You leave money on the table.
Amen. I love that. I love that. Thank you for that. You're running around. You're super busy. And I can tell that that's how you roll because you speak quickly like I do. You don't have time for lunch. What is your favorite snack?
Favorite snack. If I don't have time for lunch, if I can grab a can of soup, I love soup. I'll take it out of the can. I'll take it cold out of the can. I love soup.
Oh, my word. Cold out of the can. That's a new one, folks. My very last question for you. Of course, we're all working so hard. We have our mission-aligned businesses. They're meaningful practices to us, but life doesn't go our way every day. If you're having a bad day, is there one phrase that you tell yourself to get yourself back in the game?
Get your butt out into the gym, get a workout in, and you'll feel better in an hour.
Oh, good lesson.
So
good lesson.
That wasn't. I'm sorry, that wasn't one word, but that was the phrase I used.
No, that's the phrase. No, that's perfect. That is great. I want to thank you for being with me here on the Plant-Based Business Hour. Thank you for all you do. The probably biggest question that I should have asked and I didn't ask: when is Boosh going to be in the United States?
Great question. We're working on that right now. We've secured one of the major, most prominent food brokers in the sampling pallets in the food industry. It's quite a long time to go through the granoplams and get everything into the stores. It isn't like in technology or even cannabis where you can make a decision in 30 days. You're on the shelves in 45. So we are aggressively working, presenting to managers, various tiers of managers to get our food into the stores. And as I mentioned earlier, now with Beanfields in over 7,000 stores, primarily in the United States, it's a beautiful way for us to say, oh, and here's our whole Boosh family of products. Give it a try. So certainly this year, and hopefully within the next 60 to 90 days, Elizabeth.
Okay, that's awesome because I haven't tried any of your products. So,
Well, we'll get you some. We'll get you some.
Okay, I like the way you roll. I want to thank you, Jim Pakulis, for being here with me, CEO and chairman of Boosh Plant-Based Foods. I thank you, everybody. If you want to get more information, you want to keep track of, when Boosh is going to be in the United States, go to booshfood.com. And until I see you again, Jim, I'd love for you to come back, talk about the public markets with me. Until I see you again, thank you for all you do. Jim, don't go away, but everybody else on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, I will see you all next Tuesday. I'll be going live actually from the ETF exchange. As you all know, I've been working on some stuff there with the Veg Tech Invest, so I'll be live from Miami next week.